Good Monday morning, y'all. Welcome on in to your FreightWaves Now Community Spotlight on this Monday. I'm Kaylee Nixon. Joining me is Mike Baudenistel, one of our hosts and writers of the Stockout, our CPG and retail-focused community here at FreightWaves. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Sure. Glad to be here.
Great to have you as always. And today focusing on kind of a crossover between the retail and the CPG space and examining Amazon, which sits a little bit in the crossroads of both. And we know, of course, they've been in the news recently talking about a pretty big lawsuit, whether to classify them as a distributor or not. We've got some updates on some of their percentages. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so always seems like there's a lot going on with Amazon. There's the distributor issue. There's the FTC lawsuit. Really sort of think through this for the stockout purposes of the stockout. Amazon has about a 5% share in CPG sales, which isn't very much when you consider it's about 39% of all e-commerce. Now, sometimes during the Prime Day, it rises to about 20% of CPG sales. But it does get to this issue of, is Amazon a distributor versus just a marketplace? And, we're really speaking about the 60% of sales that Amazon has, that's the Amazon marketplace. So essentially, Amazon's not taking any of the inventory risk. It's these third-party sellers using Amazon as kind of the storefront. And, I don't want to use the word distributor, but using the Amazon as storefront and maybe fulfillment center. And so the report in February that the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Administration is going to order Amazon to be classified as a distributor. Now, that would be important because it would make Amazon potentially liable for the safety of products that are sold and owned by these marketplace sellers. Now, Amazon says, well, it really shouldn't be responsible for those type of things. It would add extra costs. They're really just sort of the storefront. But some of their behavior seems to indicate that they are going to be classified as a distributor. And this week, they rolled out new requirements for sellers, marketplace sellers in certain categories. And those categories are weight management, sports nutrition and bodybuilding, and sexual enhancement. Now, so what they want is those sellers now have to get certified from third parties that are approved by Amazon for things like inspection of the products, sort of certifying that those are safe before they can kind of choose who they wanted it to inspect it. So there's really that conflict of interest there that Amazon is trying to eliminate. And those are popular categories on Amazon. At least the sports categories are. The protein powder is one of the top 30 searches in Amazon. Creatine is reliably in the top 100. And so that could potentially add extra costs to and really there's only 3 companies now, my understanding, that have been approved so far for Amazon that could be tested for in those categories. So it could add extra costs for the marketplace sellers. It could potentially limit which sellers get on Amazon. So it is a significant issue here, whether or not they are a distributor.
So I think if you look at it from a consumer perspective, you have this general understanding. If you're buying from an online marketplace like Amazon or like Shein, like Temu, if we're going on the retail side of things, you have this general understanding that you're running at least a decent amount of risk. The product that you actually get is not what you ordered, and there is some type of quality standard that could not be being met by that product. Just because Amazon or these marketplaces are so massive, they don't have the resources to quality control. But at the same time, you take that risk when you buy from a regular retailer, right? I can't count the number of times I've gone into a Target or a Walmart, purchased a product and had to bring it back after I opened it because I was like, this is not what you guys promised to sell me. Are we looking at maybe the potential for this to come back on the consumer and Amazon saying, hey, our consumers understand the risk that they're running. We shouldn't have to be responsible for that?
That is an argument that Amazon is making. I don't know if ultimately it's going to hold water. It seems like, it's really a question of, is Amazon more like a Kroger, which they would be liable if there was a really unsafe product that's being sold at Kroger, or is it more like eBay, which eBay, it's pretty obvious that you're not buying it from eBay, you're buying it from another seller, and eBay is just the facilitator of that transaction. Whereas Amazon is something in the middle. Amazon's 40% of the products you're buying from Amazon, 60% you're buying from a third party. It's not always obvious whether which one that is. Sometimes you do that pretty quickly. A lot of the storefront looks pretty similar. So, maybe they need to be clear about that. But I think ultimately the path we're going down is Amazon is going to be responsible for the safety of some of these products. And, as a result, there might be some added costs in there. They might cull the herd as far as, who they're allowed to sell, on those sites.
Speaking of added costs, we've got some existing costs being added to sellers that are already on the marketplace. Talk to us a little bit about the fee hikes that are coming.
Yeah, so these were just imposed in the last few weeks, and there's been some confusion, I think some growing pains associated with this. So Amazon made some adjustments. And so basically what the fees are is Amazon really wants to have very high quality service, wants to maintain that high quality service. And so the primary new fee is related to inventory. And so Amazon is imposing a fee for sellers that do not have 28 days of sales in inventory based on historic demand. And so if it goes below that 28 days of inventory, there's a fee per item. There's a sliding scale based on how little inventory they have, anywhere from 32 cents to $1.11 per item. So immediately you're thinking, well, if it's an item that costs hundreds of dollars, that's not a big deal. If it's an item in the CPG world, it might only cost a few dollars, that's a huge deal. So that's kind of where we are now. Amazon is sort of started these fees. They've had a little bit of a grace period. Some of the feedback they've gotten from sellers has caused them to revise some of these fees. And really what it's come down to is that there are certain items, they're just really low volume items. And it's hard to predict, what the daily sales of those low volume items are. So for volumes they deem low volume, they scaled that back to only needing 7 days in inventory. So there's a benefit there. They also recognize that they have a surge of sales during these Prime days, particularly for CPG items. And they basically, it seems like they waive the fees if it's related to the Prime days. They said if there's issues with other certain components of the supply chain, like the Amazon fulfillment centers not operating properly, they'll waive those fees. And so they made it a little bit more accommodative there, but still, Amazon holds their marketplace sellers to very high standards, and it is difficult to make CPG sales on Amazon profitable. We've had some consultants on the Stockout who deal with a lot of these issues directly. They basically work on behalf of the marketplace sellers, advising them how do you make money on Amazon. And a lot of times it boils down to you need to have bigger case sizes. You need to have case sizes that really fits specifically in the Amazon box. You really sort of have to play Amazon's game. But it's one more thing that makes it difficult to sell CPG profitably on Amazon. So it's one barrier to keep that 5% of CPG sales from expanding to 20 or 30%.
That's interesting to see that. And I like that you noted in your notes here that it's not necessarily looking to make a profit, but to ensure service standard, which I'm sure that folks will definitely appreciate on the consumer side. Really quickly, before we let you go, Mike, talk a little bit about the Stockout coming up here in just a few minutes here on FreightWaves TV.
Sure. So Grace and I are going to review the results last week from some of the retail companies that reported earnings. Walmart reported, saw a nice stock bounce on that one. It was up about 7%. The stock was up about 7% after they reported. We'll dig into why. I mean, that one's good, nicely, naturally hedged with the fact that they do benefit from some trade downs. Also go through Home Depot's earnings, which they're seeing same-store sales decline. People seem to be putting off some of these big ticket items, remodeling. Some of that might have been done already during the pandemic, but their sales are eroding a little bit, but certainly not a disaster, not too far outside of the expectations.
All right. Well, we're excited to look at that and to get a deeper dive into some of those earnings. Thanks for joining us this morning, and we'll see you guys in just a few minutes.